Welcome to Business in the Black, the podcast where ideas become plans, plans turn into actionable items, and actionable items become results. I'm your host, Brandon D. Morgan, and this is Season 2. Welcome to another episode of Business in the Black. As you can see, I have on a jacket. That is insane. But when Wade came to set, he had on a jacket. So I thought, but let me fix myself up, and get myself together, But in any case, we have Dr. Wade Manora Jr. here with us today. Wade is not only a business owner, he's an author, a student affairs professional, and a training and leadership development professional, if you will. So you have consultant, business owner, author, full-time job, all types of things. So let's welcome Wade.
Thank you all for having me. I do want to say before we get started, I'm so proud of my friend. I've been knowing him for at least 100 years. Both he and I went to Auburn University. And actually, he was kind of a mentor to me. I was a part of a program, the Provost Leadership Undergraduate Scholar, and he was one of the mentors when I was coming in as a freshman. So I'm just so happy to see him flourish and have this platform to hear you acting. But yeah, so thank you for having me.
Now you want to gas me up at the beginning of the show. Okay, I appreciate that. No, I am extremely proud of Wade and all of his accomplishments, which you will hear very soon. Wade, you've been working in higher education for the past 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, so with those 10 years, you've worked with students, heard their stories, heard their sorrows, celebrated their accomplishments. At what point did you realize that your reach could be larger and just outside of the campus that you ran?
Yes, so I would have to say is right after I finished my dissertation for my EDD from the University of Georgia, I was recognizing that for one point of it, I knew that what helped me motivate to finish was my students themselves. And I also was noticing that a lot of people that was my age and even younger kind of came to me and was like, you're an inspiration. And I figured that in order for me to have the maximum impact, I have to create something that I could give somewhat of an individualized attention to people that they deserve, but without overwhelming myself in the process. So that led me to do the things we're going to talk about. So it's the book, creating the website, the business itself. And that kind of also motivated me to also see it through because I knew that I was serving a purpose greater than myself to help other people feel inspired in their own individual journeys, whether it was academics, professional, as well as personal life as well.
Oh, great. You have this idea about owning part of your 24-hour day. You saw your parents, build their life working 9 to 5, but you were like, it's got to be more to life than this. I just can't give my whole life to somebody else. I need some control over this. So talk to me about owning your 24-hour day and, how you manage that.
Yes, so for me, when I was thinking about the 9 to 5, when we start, my first thing that I really respect the 9 to 5 lifestyle. I myself still working 9 to 5 as well. And I wanted to, when I was thinking about reflecting on my parents who lived their entire experience working a 9 to 5, I knew that there was some type of way to own more of my life, more of my day, more of my experience. And that kind of led me to want to create something in combination with knowing that I have an ability to impact people on a larger scale. So I relied on technology. I relied on all the tools that was at my disposal to kind of create something, while also focusing on trying to maximize impact. That was important to me. And I'm someone that's a very empathic person. And I know that if I give people a lot of individualistic time, which I really appreciate doing, that I was going to become overwhelmed. And so that led me to figure out how do I build something that can help mediate my stress load, the way that I would feel overwhelmed at times. And once I built it, it was like, oh, now I feel the release that comes, but I'm also noticing that I'm helping people figure it out, whether that's career development, diversity, equity, and inclusion, or just an inspirational, motivating factor, as well as team development opportunities. So that's where it kind of stems from.
Oh, wow. That's, real insightful to know, if you try to do it all and try to impact all the people yourself individually, that you can get overwhelmed. There are so many people in the world who don't understand scaling. And that's what I heard. I heard you learn to scale, your ideas into a business.
Yes, and a lot of people within the education field, we do it for the love of our students and it's the love of humanity. But the caveat to that is that you do sometimes sacrifice your mental health because you at times could take things on, you could take it home.
Right.
And I was finding myself doing that. whether that was helping students figure out their financial loan applications. I've even been in opportunities where I was helping students figure out food stamp applications or going to court with the students to help them find out how they're going to be able to keep visitation rights for the children. So all of those things in combination, I was overloading myself.
Yeah.
And I wanted to figure out how am I going to create maximum impact while not being overloaded. And that led me to build something like this and basically own something going forward.
And to find time to sleep.
Yes.
Sleeping important. I get a little rest. It might be a luxury, but it's a good one.
Yes.
Okay. Passion projects. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody either has one or I would dare to say should have one.
Yes.
You don't have something that you're passionate about, you probably do and you just don't know that. That's the thing. You need to be able to identify what your passions are. I, for one, used to say, people say, well, what are your passions? What are you passionate about? I mean, I was just doing stuff. So I didn't know I was passionate about it. It was just a part of my life. But you saw many of your friends name their passion projects. And you yourself had a passion project.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, ManoraJr.com puts all that together.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a time that you weren't putting it all together.
Yeah.
What was that moment that you decided, you know, I need to stop talking about it and be about it?
Yes, like maybe thousands, if not millions of you all, I was heavily impacted by COVID-19, and by being at home during that time, I was still able to work full time. I was blessed with the opportunity to do that within my field, but I still had so much time, so much opportunities for me to think creatively while figuring out what can I do with all this energy that I have. And I was also at the time writing my dissertation in the midst of that, and that helped me figure out, I want to build something to help. I'm from Montgomery, Alabama, and so when I think about the resources that are there, they're not as an copious amount, right? So I remember going to a K through 12 system educational program where the books were antiquated, my desk was antiquated. When I think about the zoning aspect, where I live, which is at the time was Southside Montgomery, Alabama, and we ended up moving to the East Side, which was still kind of a dilapidated school system. I knew that I was going to be up against millions of people when I got ready to attend Auburn University, but I didn't understand the gravity of what that really looked like until I went to the new student orientation program at Auburn. It's called Camp Where Eagle, and I never forget getting ready to register for class, and there was two Caucasian white female students that was freshmen just like I, and they were talking about how they got a 31 or a 32 on the ACT score. But that was kind of unheard of from where I'm from.
Yeah.
I was salutatorian in my class, and I had scored a 21 after taking it 3 different times. It was 21, a 19, and 21 again.
And baby, a 21 was lit.
Okay, right. And so I was like,
lit nasty. But go on with your story.
So I was like, there's a world out there where people are scoring that high. How could that be? I felt like I had maximized all the resources and the opportunities that was at my disposal. I did not know that there was an entirely different school systems where you have a lot of resources. So for me, when I thought about creating career development e-modules, being able to help people with their cover letters, resume, like individual time to create those programs, developing diversity, equity, and inclusion e-modules as well, and then developing team development leadership programs for nonprofit organizations or social organizations. All of those different caveats are things, are resources that are not where I'm from in a large amount. So I want to make myself usable. But I also wanted to give back to my community, so I developed a Pushing Forward scholarship for any student within the Montgomery, Alabama region that wanted to attend an HBCU in the state of Alabama, or any student within Montgomery, Alabama, or the state of Alabama that wanted to attend a college across the United States. We have an application process for it, and that was my way to say, I see you all, I know what you're going through, because I was once you all at the end of the day. And that was being within that mindset of COVID. I was already doing these things, but they were all really disjointed, and that led me to create ManoraJr.com to pull everything together. But I'm also inspired, so I decided that was the time where I wrote 2.43, The Impossible Dream, during that entire phase of COVID-19, because I wanted to tell the story, be absolutely honest and authentic about what I was going through. Because when I would talk to my students that I was mentoring or just serving at the institution I was working at, they felt good knowing that they was not the only one, and they would look at my wall and see a bachelor's degree and master's degree, and then I was going to finish up with my doctorate. And I said, okay, I know how I'm going to be able to help on a larger scale, and that was to write a book to inspire those that can connect with my story. I'm just trying to figure it out. Yeah.
You referenced 2.43, The Impossible Dream. That's a very specific title. So talk to me about what that means and what is the impossible dream?
Yes, so 2.43 became a badge of honor for me in undergrad because I wanted to let people know that there's no shame in the game here. I'm very proud of it. That was actually my undergraduate GPA once I finished. And so a lot of people have told me my entire life that you had to get a 3.0 or a 3.5 for you to be deemed successful in some kind of way in the field of academia. But however, that's not necessarily true. And so immediately when I graduated from undergrad, I would tell myself that this 2.43, this 2.75, this is important because I didn't want to fall into the trap of feeling bad about myself for what I actually earned in college. But that GPA does not reflect the totality of my story. So that is why I named the book 2.43 The Impossible Dream, because I've heard my entire life that you had to have a specific number for you to be a doctor or to be deemed successful in the realm of academics or professional life. And it's simply not true. And so that is what that meant for me. The Impossible Dream itself is, of course, I'm a doctor. And I knew that in order for me to be accomplished in the world that I wanted to exist in, which is in academia within scholarship, I knew I had to open my mouth and communicate. I remember one of my older mentors had said that I can sell salt to a slug. And so that meant I need to be present, I need to be vocal, I need to be able to walk into any space and know that I am in full autonomy to own that space, and you're gonna know who Wade Manora Jr. is before I leave that room. And so what I did was, I'll never forget, which is also a story within the book, I magically, after hearing about this field of student affairs, higher education from my mentors at Auburn University, the greats like Dr. Jocelyn Vickers, Dr. Shakira Abdullah, just some amazing people that Auburn that really left a huge imprint on me, on top of Dr. Ainsley Carey, I would go in their office and just kind of live to soak up, I'm not going to let go of my dream, right? Yeah. And so I knew that I wanted to go to graduate school, that in order for me to be successful of where I wanted to go, I needed that next gear of education for myself. And I would just sit there and I was like, I'm going to have the boldest idea is to actually email the chair department head of the higher ed student affairs program at our university. And I emailed him and said, hey, I just want to have coffee with you. Now, keep in mind, I don't drink coffee, but I figured in my head that someone of his stature would drink coffee. Right. So I was like, I'm going to go and just have a meeting with him. So I set up the email. He responded back to me. And then I was like, hey, Dr. Jeromeo, if you just give me an opportunity, I know this is what this looks like on paper, but this is not what my life looked like. I'm a survivor story. I'm an actual person that have a lived experience. That's kind of checker, that's been through some things. But if you give me an opportunity to showcase what I'm able to do, and it's not necessarily giving me, I'm earning an opportunity, because I always want to reframe that for people. Yeah. And I went through the application process. I was the first of all of my peers early in that fall academic year to even think about applying for graduate school, because I was just really on it. And I did the interview, I applied for it, and I received word that I actually got in. And so for me, that was the keys to the kingdom or the gate, because I had beat the stigma of it. Right. And so a lot of my friends would call me grad school, which I thought was so funny because it was a television show from the game. Right. And Tia Mara's character was named Med School, and that was the moniker for her. So for the next 2 years, people would call me grad school. Even though we were all in grad school together, but I was grad school. So to me, that is what that spoke of. Now, of course, over time, I had more academic successes, more professional successes, which led me to ultimately get accepted into University of Georgia's Doctor of Education program, which is quite funny. I missed my interview on purpose because a little bit of that fear grabbed hold of me, and I talked about there in the book as well. And the coordinator emailed me and was like, hey, what happened to your interview? And I was like, I'm so sorry. I got caught up in traffic, just because mentally I was not prepared to hear that no. Right. And then she wanted to reschedule with me. And I was like, sure, I'll go. 2 days later, I did the interview. About a week after that, I was checking my mailbox here in Atlanta, Georgia, around the corner, and it was a letter, and it was red, black, and it was like, congratulations. I was like, are you sure this is real? And I opened the letter, and it was like, you've been accepted to go to a doctorate education program. And for me, that was impossible from what I've heard my entire life. So that's why when I decided to title the book, I want people to know that don't shame me or don't think it's a negative. That 2.43 is very powerful and was able to open a lot of doors for me. And I want others to know that it's another route. So if you have to open up a door for yourself or the door is shut, then let's think about a window. Let's think about a fire exit. Let's think about different ways. And that's what I tell my students every single day. Like, hey, you may have not done well on that test or you did not achieve a specific organization that you wanted to do. Well, let's figure out how you're going to better set yourself so you could be able to achieve it a different way, but you still get your maximum out goal. So that's where the 2.4 Impossible Dream came from.
Wow. I mean, I feel like I knew some of this, but I mean, it's just inspiring hearing you speak about it. And I just know that there are so many people who need to have the courage to, whether in business, whether if they are looking for certifications or whatever, to be okay to hear the no and know that if you, hey, you know what? I'm scared to open the mail. But realizing, I mean, you could just go have a coffee chat.
Have a coffee chat.
Have a coffee chat.
And everything could be simple as speaking to someone, being able to just simply say, I want to get to know your story, but I want you to tell me about yours and what can I learn from you. Yeah. And because I'm a very forward and very open and very communicative person, that was easy for me to go and say, I want to learn from you. Yeah. Can you help me? So I was one of those students that may not have been super successful in academics, but I was always involved with something because I knew that there was something else out there that I need to be doing to help. So I did a lot of volunteering with Project Uplift. I had a little brother who I absolutely adore. I still communicate with him to this very day. And a lot of student organizations opportunities just so I can develop and grow, because I will say this, if you're not necessarily doing extremely well academically, there's another route, and that's through involvement, internships, being able to also, once again, communicate, ask for opportunities, because what's the worst they're going to say? A no? But if you live the life that I live, and I know there's similar stories that are out there, you probably already received at least 20 no's before you got here. But you're going to come across someone that's going to be like, I see value in what you do, and I'm also going to help you create something for yourself to turn this into an absolute yes for you. And that's how you grow, not just with your soft skills, your skill set, but grow as a person to get to your ultimate goal of that yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just rolling my brain here thinking about how you're talking about academics and how it's the exact same thing for business owners who get no's all the time when they try to get funded.
Yes.
Okay, who get no's all the time when you have this great idea. And you know that this idea is great, but everybody's saying no. You just need one yes. And it may be, again, come through a coffee chat, come through any of that. So like I say, there are a lot of things that I'm hearing that I know will resonate with our listeners.
The word is boldness. You have to be bold and be able to step out there for what you want. Even in my business right now, I don't have a business background or a VA or anything like that, similar to most of you all, in no form or fashion. And so what I decided to do is I use YouTube University, YouTube. Yeah. I read a lot of books just so I can better understand, well, how does the taxes work? How do I go about with the trademark opportunities? How do I leverage this? But I hopped into a lot of Facebook groups, and I was able to hear and learn from other people that have built similar things that I was interested in, and just became a sponge of knowledge, because that is how I was able to grow, is by learning from other people.
Absolutely, absolutely. You talked about seeing it through. Mm-hmm. Of course, you finished your EDD for representation. So yes, for you, but also for other Black male students who needed to see you and see themselves in you. But in those moments of, oh my God, I'm tired. I don't know if I'm going to finish. Oh, this is hard. What helped you to push through?
I would say for certain, being able to be challenged by my Black male students when I would come back to campus. Every single day, it was hordes of them just to be in my office, which I love, because I was that student when I was in undergrad, being amongst my mentors on campus, and they would come and ask me, oh, well, how was your reading yesterday? How did you get an opportunity to finish up doing these theme creations, or just different questions? And they kind of held me to task. So I knew that they were looking at me as to say, when Wade finishes, I could be able to finish. And that meant something to me, that I knew that I was having a transformative ability to impact the way that they saw the world. Because I knew that they viewed me as their big brother, someone that they really appreciated, someone they looked towards to help ground them, because we also had a lot of real talk conversations amongst each other, and they really valued my advice and the way that I showed up in their lives. And I knew that quitting was never an option because I never wanted to let them down. However, there was several opportunities that I had to think to myself or tell myself, I need to keep going. I suffered from imposter syndrome. I was the youngest one in my cohort. And so everyone else that was in my class, they were directors, they were assistant vice presidents, they were vice presidents. They had reached a certain plateau within their business at the very top. And at the time, I was coming in as a coordinator. And that just, it sat with me, and I was like, wow, like, do I deserve to be here? Those questions of doubt, which I had those questions of doubt once again when I did the interview process, which kind of caused me to skip the interview that way. But once I would tell myself, you belong to be here, it's okay. But I did take moments, I'll never forget, it was 2 weeks, consecutive weeks, and I just was on the couch, just there, but I had to will myself out of knowing that this was bigger than myself. I also had to lean on the fact that I am one, my entire family on my mom's side is huge. It's like 15, 16 grandchildren, and I am the first of all the grandchildren to receive a doctorate degree. Wow. And so it's a lot of men, a lot of women. My grandmother is, I think, one of 13, one of 16, correct me, in the family. And so her and my grandfather, they had quite a few children, and each one of their children had 2 to 4 children. And so for me, it was important that my cousins that came behind me and the cousins that was older than I, that they knew that Wade was doing something to bring honor to the Leonard family, to the Manora family, because it hadn't been done before. So now when I see my younger cousins, and even those students as well, those Black male students, go on and achieve greatness, I feel just as a part of their story, right? Because I knew that it wasn't possible. It wasn't something that they could dream up or came up on their own. They would sometimes tell me, like, thank you. We may not have talked every single day, but you helped me understand that I could do it, that there's something good that could come from a barren land, like the Bible said, but from Montgomery, Alabama, and from where we're from. So that was important to me. And I that's part of the reason also why I decided to develop ManoraJr.com, because I wanted everything that I've done to be in a spot where everyone could pull from at any time when they need a little bit of inspiration.
I mean, that's great. And I was thinking when you were talking about imposter syndrome, in your cohort, you said you were the youngest, but how many of them were Black?
So within my cohort, there was 2 Black men. There was myself, and then there was an older African-American Black gentleman. And then there was 3 Black women, and the cohort, I think, was about 20 to 25. So we had a decent sized representation, but that age factor played a role in how I was spoken to, how I was dealt. But I never let that come into my mind to give me a defeatist attitude or to tell me, except for that one time when I was on the sofa for 2 weeks, that I don't deserve to be here, that there's something quite that I have not mastered. So I purposefully, in every single class, you would see me raise my hand and ask questions, or I would provide feedback. Whenever the professor asked a question, I was the first one to jump up and say,
"They were gonna know you."
This is what it's the Leo. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. It will show up when it needs to show up. So, and then, I don't mind talking. I don't mind saying the things that needs to be said, especially with tact. And if I have something inspiring to say or knowledgeable to say, I'll interject that way. And that's one thing that I'm proud of myself for doing, because I wasn't always that way to show up boldly. But I think my lived experiences, I had no choice but to come out the way that I came out, which is to be someone that's bold, that someone is going to show up, and someone who is not going to allow fear to overtake every single thing that I do, or the fact that I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. The fact that I do have this GPA, with the fact that I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, all these different things, sometimes they can overwhelm you. And for a time, especially in undergrad, it did overwhelm me. But I had to tell myself, it's going to be a brighter day.
Yeah.
It's going to come. So I had to not look at the semester. I had to chop it down to looking at months. And then when those months got hard, I looked at weeks. And I just said, I'm going to do good this week, and I'm going to do good the next week. And next thing I know, my 5 years of undergrad was completed.
Yeah. I've really never talked to the audience about this, but Maddie Moss Clark is my grandma.
The shoe.
I mean, she my grandma. I mean, if you've ever seen the movie, The Clark Sisters, The First Ladies of Gospel, when I watched that the first time, baby, I said, oh my God. I act like this lady when I'm directing the choir. I said, what is happening? Like, because get this note right, because you know what you're doing and you know that ain't what I taught. Yeah. Now we're going to talk about the one that if one of them was my mom, it would be Dorinda Clark Cole. Okay? Love my aunties, but DCC, that's her mom. You know, she's the closest to my mom. All right, now with that, there's a song that she has that speaks to you or spoke to you at a time that you really needed it. Yeah. And you say that you want 2.43, the impossible dream, to be that thing for someone else who may need what that song gave to you. Talk to us about the song. Talk to us about what it did for you, and again, how those two align.
Yes, so the song itself is going viral probably every other day. It was called I'm Still Here. And I'm someone that grew up in the church, but of course, as time, you kind of learn to have your own relationship with your faith and with God and with religion. And at the time, I was being really tested because I was like, how am I going through all of these things, right? I am in a state of confusion, okay? However, I felt like God was using music as a way to talk to me, because my prayers kind of got a little bit lax at that time because it was difficult for me. And the song I'm Still Here, it was just pouring into me every single day, that when I look back over my life, all of the things, right? And it was a way that I was going through therapy in the way that Dorinda Clark Cole was singing in that song. But it also, when I researched and read about what her experience was and how she needed to go to therapy, and that helped let me know that if someone like her and someone that gave this amazing song that spoke to me every single day, including that amazing vamp that she did in that song, it spoke to me, and I said, I think I need therapy. I need to process the things that I've been going through for so many years in the proper way, in the proper context, to gain the tools of it, to overcome it, or at least be able to help me navigate through these things. Because things are not going to move.
Right.
They're going to always be there, but it helped unlock, the therapy helped unlock what I knew I had within myself to process all of these negative things. And even some things about my own personality that say, okay, you need to change that, or you need to modify that and become a better you to serve yourself and also other people. And that song, I'm Still Here, when I tell you, it just, even to this day, when I feel it, like I'm overwhelmed. Even when I was building ManoraJr.com, I was writing the book separately, developing all these things, a little bit was like, is this possible? Yeah. But then I would play that song, I'm Still Here, and it would walk me through like, oh, you came from here, and you're here. You're trying to get here. You can do it. Yeah. So every single day, I probably still play that song. It's always in my Apple top 10. A few years, it was my #1 song, and that song is a older song. It came out when I was in my teens, and I didn't necessarily know that the song existed. I just happened to watch a live performance of her, and I was like, wow, I think this lady's talking to me and don't even know me. And so for me, when I was writing the book, that was the intent of the book. I wanted to help people have that moment for themselves where it can unlock this intrinsic motivating factor that everyone has, but sometimes you can't tap into it because you necessarily know where and how and what part of yourself to unlock, or what is even locked up in the first place. Yeah. And so for me, when I wrote the book, that was where I was coming from, a place that could tell people, this is my offering of I'm Still Here to the world. Because I know what that particular song did for me ever since I've heard it back in my sophomore year of
Here at Business in the Black, we always talk about money. I mean, we're going to talk about finances at some point. You got to know that we're going to hear how do people handle their finances. Now, when you're building something like ManoraJr.com and trying to put all of the things in there, you realize all of the things.
Yeah.
And in that, you realize how creative you are and how much you want to put into this and how much you want to do this and da 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 da. And all this stuff costs money.
Yes.
I mean, I use my set in my house because if I don't, then maybe I got to figure out a place that, everything costs money. Now, with that, you've had to make some adjustments and scale back and, hey, I want to do this, but I have to do this. How did you decide those things? And then how did you make peace with your decision, knowing that wasn't what you originally had planned?
Yes. So what I did originally, just thinking through it, my biggest thing, like you mentioned, was that my goals, my creativity was so big and so grand. But when I realized that when I'm a team of one for one, and also the amount of capital, the amount of money that I would need to get all of these major creative projects off the ground, I wasn't gonna be able to do it like from day one. And I had to make peace with that.
Yeah.
So what I decided to do is I have an actual journal that's specifically for ManoraJr.com and how to build something. And I wrote out this major goal that I had, and then I made program specific goals or ideas and how am I going to make these things go. So there's like a big bullet point, smaller bullet points, little action steps. And I even broke it down even further so I can see what was going on and made those action steps into goals that I could do to achieve on a specific day. That way that I can stay on top of things and that I wouldn't feel overloaded by looking at this massive mountain of a thing to do, which is something I tell my students to do daily, but to put it into practice was a little bit interesting because now I'm talking about my passion project, something that's really, really important to me. And so in terms of the financial pieces that kind of comes with this, I had to realize that I need to put myself on a budget because otherwise I'm about to pull my resources out of my lived everyday expenses, my debit account, and to create this thing, which I'm very, very passionate about. So it was important to me to figure out what was the needs of the community that I wanted to serve, like by focusing on what are the 4 Ps, which are product, the placement of it, the promotion, and also the price. Because if I don't do it in the right way, I could potentially price out the people that I want to serve. I know that my goal is to help lower income, socially disadvantaged communities. So that means I can't put my product out there that is $35, $40 because who is that really serving? If I know that it's a need they have, I need to scale it, right? I need it to make sense because who is my audience? What is the product even looking like? How am I putting it out there? So thinking about it from a business sense, which once again, I don't have a business degree or business background, but like I said, I use YouTube University. I spoke to a lot of people that have done these things. I just started to learn. I do have a marketing minor, but it's not necessarily a full-blown background in business. So I had to learn it. So that's one thing I would tell people that are interested in creating a business. You have to be able to rely on your knowledge and your processes and what you think, but also don't be afraid to tap someone else on the shoulder and say, can I just
pick your brain?
Can I just talk to you about what was an example of what you did? And I also realized too, everyone's journey to doing something like this is not going to be the same. Okay. So the advice that you're going to get from, in my friend Brandon's case, from another podcaster, it may not be the same advice that you're going to get from another podcaster. And as someone, if you wrote a book like I wrote a book, our two processes of getting that book out to market could be completely two different things. So just be able to learn and add to your tool belt where from a variety of different areas. And that includes understanding the cost that you need to be shelling out to get your particular goals or product out to the people.
That was a huge plug for Business in the Black, whether you realize it or not. Because every episode you get a different version, a different this, a different way from every entrepreneur. So huge plug. We appreciate it.
It was on purpose, but it's the truth.
I mean, watch this episode, go back and watch the other ones, and watch the next one. I mean, we're just saying. Yes. Thank you. But no, that was great. Transferable skills.
Yes.
I say that really, if you can do this thing over here, you probably can do this thing over there. And sometimes we call it different things in different industries. So for an entrepreneur who is in childcare right now, but you've always worked in marketing. You think, well, the two have nothing to really do with each other. But as we just heard about the 4Ps, there are some things in there that when you left your marketing job, you took to childcare. But also, like I say, if it was just talking to parents and how to talk to them, getting them to trust you with their children, all those types of things. Well, let's talk about the transition you had.
Yes.
You moved into a position with a nonprofit as a training development coordinator, and you thought that your transferable skills were going to be like, yep, I did this over here, and it's going to be the exact same over here. Oh, I know how to do this. I can handle this. That was walking in real confident, real bold, if you will.
Very bold.
But now let's talk about when that didn't necessarily happen. And what was the biggest surprise about the transition? And what did you have to relearn?
Yes, so what essentially was happening is I was understanding that there's a difference in industry practices. So in the nonprofit world, when I was working for this nonprofit as a team development coordinator, there's different policies and procedures that are specifically aligned within the nonprofit sector. However, when I am in higher education, the policies and procedures are a little bit different. The laws are different on the books. And that's something I would tell people as well, is that just because you may be in one industry or one area, it doesn't necessarily mean that the skills that you learn will transfer a one-to-one from those areas. What could happen is that your soft skills, your ability to communicate, your ability to connect with one another, network, pull things together, program from that aspect, that may translate over across the board in any opportunity for you to just pull out your woodhouse, your bag to get done. However, there could be some different framings based upon where you're at. Now, I'm probably someone that will say to myself, because I'm a Leo, very bold, is that I believe that I can do anything, right? But I also at the same time understand that I have a understanding that I can't. So that's the way that I check my abilities. So I'm in higher education every single day. I truly love it. And there are some people that work in orientation or summer orientation programs where their ability to do logistics work is far beyond what I know that I could do, right? That means that Manora Jr. don't step into orientation places to do because it's a mismatch. And so once you know yourself and what your skills are, that being able to program or logistical program something, that's also something you have to think about or scale in the size. And it's not something that I can't necessarily do. I admire those that do that, those major programs that way, but I simply can't do that. And that's something that you would learn. And once I reframe the way I thought about how I want to do my business model, I'm not going to put myself or my business in a place that would be a place of failure, trying to keep up with the Joneses, trying to appear as if I'm all knowledgeable in these things, which I am not. But I want to make sure that when I'm doing it, my best foot forward is there because your business is your brain and your brain is you. It's all interconnected. And I don't want to set my business up for failure that way. That's what I would tell people that are creating things to make sure you know yourself. Yeah.
You run a very lean business model. And I mean, real lean. I mean, almost free. You say that it's $64 with no employees. Talking about it.
Yes, so that $64, no employees, it was as simple as going back to me talking about my journey. So all of those goals that I had for myself, one of the goals was in order for me to house all of this, I needed to create a website. And so I went on YouTube and said, what is the best website domain application that I need to learn about? And there was a couple that kind of always prompted themselves like Wix, Weebly, all these different type of platforms. However, I was like, there's one that I feel like they were unable to do exactly what I needed to do. And so I looked on the website, there was a fee attached. So before I paid for the fee, I made sure that I created all of the modules, as I mentioned before, on RaymonRJr.com. We have e-modules for career development. So if you have questions about learning how to do a resume, a cover letter, questions about interview etiquette. I created all of those modules from scratch, and it was as simply as me using the resources that I had. So I created the actual presentations, I made the handouts for the e-modules, but I also created them in a way where you're going to hear me doing a voiceover, and so you can get that way that I wanted to remain a one-on-one interactable. You have all of that at its disposal. So I did that for the career development side, but I also created a diversity, equity, and inclusion side of it. So, we're living in a world right now where there's a lot of questions around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm saying that on purpose because some people, when they hear DEI, they're not necessarily connecting that DEI is actually an acronym for three specific concepts.
Right.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion are three different things that represent three different things. They're interlocked because that's the way that the brain and how we decide to package them as an industry. And so I created two different pipelines. One is a taking flight, and the other one is called soaring. So each one of those are kind of the tiered systems, which are packed into the different concepts at your beginner level, which is taking flight, and then at your soaring level, a little bit more complicated, but it's still broken down. But once again, I want the community that is not necessarily ever spoken to or educated on these things to be able to walk away and say, I learned this by going on waymanor.jr.com and paying the fee. Now I have access to all of these different e-modules that I can always pull from. Because whether you know it or not, when you step out into corporate America or you step out to be a business owner, all of these concepts come into play in some kind of way.
Right.
And so I utilize my one of my good friends has a podcast equipment in their apartment. So I was over there for consecutive 5 days after making the presentations on PowerPoint, making the slide decks, utilizing Google Workspace, which is also a fee for me to be able to house everything. I created a domain, so I have all of that. And all of those different compartments is literally, once again, me speaking to other people that have done similar things and going on YouTube to say, oh, well, for me to create something, and I didn't want it to be webinarjr.wix.com or whatever the domain was, I wanted to own it. But who knew that? I didn't know that.
Right.
So I had to go figure out, well, how do I make it be this last part be extremely professional, right? To come
Right.
across. And that's when I learned about domain creation. So there's a little nugget for you all as well. It's super, super easy to create. And when you get stuck, they have a lot of tutorials on all these platforms to help you understand how to connect what you just created to your actual website. But all of those things do have a timetable as well. So if you want to create something, you may get something that's going to be free for 2 weeks or for 30 days. And so for me, I didn't want to just buy things. I created everything up front, including logos, all the material was branded. And then once I created the website, I was able to just create the website from scratch. I don't have a tech background or web design background, but I was looking at different people's websites that done similar things that, okay, this color pattern makes sense. I like the way this is presented. And when I built my own, which I definitely say you all should go check out, it's really, really nice, really, really professional and very easy to use on the end user side. And it was like, oh, now I can just create all of these different modules and set the price point to make it make sense. And it's just an easy way to interface with my community that needs to be reached. And of course, the presentations there, being able to have a scholarship housed internally, so the application is there pushing forward scholarship, and of course access to the book if you want to purchase it. It's on there as well, a signed copy or directly through Amazon. So building something that made sense, and if I was looking for something, I wanted it to reflect how I saw the world coming from the perspective of someone that didn't have a lot of resources to be able to use this platform.
Yeah. So your running budget is $64.
Yes, every month. It's going to be $64 is going to come out, whether I'm bringing in income or revenue that month or not, which I've been blessed to be on the receiving side of that. And I also created its own bank account.
Okay.
So I don't allow my business process to be interwoven into my debit or my personal credit account. So it's the only thing. I even named it, so I won't even go into there for tax purposes.
Right.
And it just allows itself to spend and allow me to sleep comfortably. Because one thing you don't want to do is for, between January and February of every year is to get a notice from the IRS to say, hey, we got some questions about your finances and how that's looking for your business. And for me, I'm a stay on top of things kind of person. And so that made sense to me. And so that meant I need to create a business account for it to just exists within its own.
LinkedIn. You use LinkedIn a lot for your businesses, colleges, nonprofits, and getting contact lists and all of those different types of things. So walk me through how you actually leverage that particular platform and how it has worked out for you.
Yeah, so as many of you know, LinkedIn is a platform that has people's individual where they work at, their work history, their titles, what they do. And so what I decided to do, because for some reason I go viral on LinkedIn quite often where I may make a post about something and it's just going out into the ecosphere. And it's like, hey, that's okay. I have some great opinions and insight about a lot of things. And so what I was noticing is I was getting good traction on that platform. And I was like, if I'm going to be on this platform, and I'm helping people, I also want to be able to help my business be self-sustaining and connect people to what I'm doing every single day within ManoraJr.com. And so what I decided to do is I use all these three platforms. I use Microsoft Excel, because in my case, I had access to it. And I was able to make Excel spreadsheets at the very top. It'll be like someone's name, their email, the business or organization, institution that they work at. I also was able to put in there where their target audience was. So if they serve lower income, whether they serve first generation students or students at large, whether they serve moms that are going through pregnancy, all those different type of areas. And I also created a template of emails when I was going to email all these different groups. So of course I knew that my platform was going to be for students of a minoritized background, first generation students, African American male students, African American students, and also people from a lower disenfranchised community. So I knew I had at least 5 or more at a minimum different communities that I was going to be connecting and wanted to connect my work to them in some kind of way. And so I made 5 to 6 different email templates that when I was finding these individuals on this contact list using LinkedIn, I was able to email them directly and say, hey, I know that you do this, in this case. I know that you work with a African-American Black male student population in Lowndes County, which is a county within Alabama, that you work with those students. How have you ever thought about their need for career development? Have you thought about them getting a better understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion, team development, orientation, experiences, but also have you thought about them meeting a motivating factor through a book club or just offering something for them to connect with? And so in doing that, I have all my hyperlinks there. I make sure that, of course, the spelling was correct. And then that'll allow me to create a system that people say is antiquated and old, but I think it's still very much so applicable. You just use it the right way. It's a way of using cold calling, where you're just connecting with people directly, direct to consumer, of like knowing, hey, I exist. Now, there are some times where I may send out emails that I may get 1 out of 25 responses back. But hey, that's the name of the game in business when you're creating something, is you may not get all the responses back about the effort you put back out there, but that one person that connects with me, in my mind, they become a client. Some people put them in a client vote after the fact, after the transaction of the actual funds. However, that's when my customer service, me being able to brand myself as someone that can be trustworthy, that this is not someone that's just going to be taking advantage of you in any other way. And so now I'm saying, okay, when is the next time that you and I could speak directly via Zoom or a platform about what your needs are? I was able to create something specifically for your needs. We have some templates here, and in that email and that Zoom that we set up, and now I'm able to learn from them, but also show them what we offer under ManoraJr.com. And a lot of times, it's like, oh, I like this particular package. We want to build this, or I would like for you to, I would like to purchase, I should say, about 30 books for our young men's group that's coming in. And that has worked for me. Of course, it is time consuming. And so what I do within my calendar, every week on Sundays from the time of 6 to 9 p.m., that's devoted to ManoraJr.com. Now, I have a flexibility, and I'm very thankful of that, where I do have freedom a lot of times on my Saturdays and Sundays to be able to do that. But I will say to anyone listening, if you want to create something great, you're going to have to carve out some time to spend to create the things that you want to see in the best foot forward. And so for me, on Sundays, afternoons, and nights, that is specifically dedicated to my craft and what I wanted to do with this platform. And so my friends know that if you contact Wade during that time, he may answer, but he's also gonna be like, "Is this an emergency?" Because they already know I have something going on at the time that I'm really focused in on, and I establish healthy boundaries with my friends, so they know it's not out of malice or things of that nature. It's just me trying to work. So LinkedIn has been a great tool for me, and of course, I use the internet a lot. So I will type in nonprofits within Philadelphia, Pennsylvania that deal with first generation students. So an entire list will come up, and now I'm scouring those nonprofits websites, and now I'm creating a more extensive list where I can go back to the templates that I made, copy and paste, put your hyperlinks there, send everything off, and then wait till response back. Now I do send a secondary email later on if I don't hear anything back, but that's just me making sure that I'm staying abreast of what people need to see and need to see an action oriented um, outreach on behalf of someone like myself.
Let's talk about benchmarking and SMART goals, because at the end of the day, if you can't measure it, you can't track it, if you can't see, ooh, this working, this not working, you can't make adjustments, and at some point it's gonna catch up to you. I promise you. I'm not saying you're gonna fail, but you won't be as successful as you could be. But in any case, I mean, because a free fall. I'm just saying, y'all know. But your benchmark is 40 individuals purchasing one module.
Yes.
And looking at that, it tells you what marketing strategy. We just talked about LinkedIn and different things that you're doing. It tells you which one to implement. So what have you learned tracking those numbers and about what works and what doesn't?
Yes, so I decided to look at what was happening in the field. I was noticing that people in a copious amount, a large number, was creating platforms similar to mine, and I wanted my SMART goals, which are simply just a reality goal. So I looked at my own social media capital, my ability, I should say, of like the networks that I already have that are existing that need something like this, and then the population itself, and said, okay, I think a great sweet spot for this particular e-module, which the one that we're talking about is the diversity and inclusion e-module, was 40. Now, of course, when you think of e-modules, from what I'm offering, you would think that it would be 40 is the goal for diversity and inclusion and 40 for career development, resumes, and cover letters, but they were slightly different because one of them is under a hyper-focused lens at the moment, so I know that there's going to be people out there looking to learn more about it. And so my career development modules, I set those at 20 since I'm starting out. And so 40 because I knew that there was an appetite for it, and that would kind of make me think about, I need to be a little bit more intentional with my outreach to get this particular product to the masses and how that would look. And so that is how I was able to, stratify that there's a difference there in what's being I can offer, but also what the need is from people that I'm communicating with. And so the tracking of it, because I was using a particular web host site, that I was able to create it in a way where the website itself on the user, on the developer side, I was able to see when a purchase is being made, who purchased it, and those sorts of things. And I also built in kind of a direct communication to them. So once they hit purchase for any one of those e-modules, they're going to get an email with all the module information, all the instructions. And then 2 days after that, they will get a direct Qualtrics survey feedback form to let me know, well, how successful was it? What are the things that you learned? What can be improved on it? So now we're having a two-way communication stream that it should always be that way in this, especially when you're learning an educative format such as this, that you want to be able to tweak those things that are making it better for the people that are reviewing your content or your e-models in this case. And so that way I was tracking not just for the purchasing side, which is good because that's creating revenue for my company, but I'm also getting the information on the numerical side to say, how am I going to take this feedback to become better? Because you purchasing is an amazing thing, but I also want to know, did you learn? What was your experience from it? Because we sometimes forget that when we're creating something and we want to put it out there, that the word of mouth is just as powerful as the old tried and true method of creating something. And I wanted my word of mouth metrics or the overall concept around webmanorajr.com is that it was easy to use. I walked away from the platform actually learning something, and I can be able to communicate that to someone else. And it's a myriad of factors that are kind of listed within the benchmark survey that I provided.
You host monthly roundtable chats covering DEI, lived experiences, and business topics. What's one conversation in particular that has, shifted your perspective on whatever the topic was at the time?
So within the inclusivity roundtable conversations that I do monthly, I started those because I was really wanting to build a self-sustainable community, whether it's going to be 2 people or up to 500 people, right? I wanted it to be a space where people could come and learn, express themselves, but also not feel shame. Because a lot of the conversations that we have around diversity, equity, inclusion, the lived experiences of others, but also business practices can sometimes feel a little taboo. That's something that we really talk about all the time. And so there is an embedded shame of like, I should know this, but I don't. Or if I speak my truth, then there's going to be some monumental backlash opposed to me being educated in the proper way so I can grow from my place of ignorance, right? And so that's why I built it. And so the conversation that really like made me realize that I was doing the right thing, but it also shifted the way that I viewed this side of my work is I was having an inclusivity roundtable discussion, and we were talking about true diversity, equity, and inclusion from the lens of you being first generation in this country and what that would look like and the impacts of certain policies and procedures happening across the country. And within that conversation, I realized that, oh, a lot of us just simply don't know. And we don't know the experiences of other people. It's very easy to brush it away or invalidate it or to simply say it's not a big deal.
Right.
Right. And so the people that was in that particular chat, it was about 32 people in that session. 4 of them actually emailed me after the chat and said, I never really thought about how my voting record or how I may treat someone or my thought pattern for someone that's first generation here in this country of how that can be a negative or a positive or just impact their experiences overall. And I know that going forward for those 4 people that confirm with me that now they will go and they will behave differently because now they are aware and knowledgeable. And that made me even more grounded into the fact that I was doing the right thing by creating. I know it's very cliche to say safe space, but I was creating an opportunity for others to learn and share from the perspective of what they did not know.
Right.
And so that created a month-long thing. You can also go to ManoraJr.com and sign up for those. They are free. They're simply a space where we're going to be building community around those 3 different concepts. And of course, if we have to make it even bigger to expand it, we certainly can. I know one time we had an entire chat sessions about Brandy and Monica. We had a Boys Mind concert conversation just about what we wanted to see. So sometimes we have a lot of levity because if you have not noticed, I love to bring the jokes and the personality to my session spaces that I'm in. And so we are building a strong community amongst each other where when those more serious conversations or topics come up, now it's like I feel comfortable asking the questions because I know that I'm in a space where I can actually learn opposed to being judged.
Earlier, you talked about the scholarships that you are offering through ManoraJr.com or your brand, what have you. And now let's kind of go back to that and really dive into it because, yes, you're a startup. Yes, you want to give back. Yes, you have a servant heart, but you also have to run a business. Yeah. So let's talk about the scholarships and then explain to us how you're balancing, giving back while building a sustainable business.
Yes. So one of the things that I was already doing prior to creating this business itself is I was already providing scholarships back to my home state as well as my hometown. I'm born and raised in Montgomery, Alabama. And so I've been doing Pushing Forward Scholarship for about 5 years now. So there are several students. Some have went on to actually get ready to graduate from Alabama A&M University. One has attended Alabama State University, and then I have another student that attended Troy University, which I'm very, very proud of them. And so I've already was doing that. And so I was taking some of my personal funds that I would set aside because I really believed in as a kid, I watched a lot of Spider-Man as well as the X-Men animated series a lot. And with Uncle Ben, when he was like, with great power comes great responsibility, I really felt that way because I also knew that without the mentors that I had at Auburn and the people that was like, you can do it, and also that helped me along the way, I would not have made it. And I told myself that if I'm being blessed and I've earned financial capital, that there was going to be some kind of way that was going to leave my wallet and my bank account is going to go to help someone because now I'm planting a seed of wealth into their life. So that's important to me. So the way that I folded it into the business model itself is I no longer take my personal funds of it. A part of all the emails that I send out to people letting them know about the Manora Jr.com, there's also a donorship link there. Okay. And so I suggest that you would be interested, I should say, to solicit, to want to donate. And I also will provide people with a actual receipt. So if you want to use it for your tax write-offs, you're more than welcome to do that. But I do all those things to let people know this is a safe, reliable program, and it's something that's going to be going directly to the students. And to qualify for pushing for a scholarship, you have to be a rising senior, a rising senior, so you need to be in your senior year, of course, and you have to be living within the state of Alabama. As I mentioned before, I'm from there, and so it's important to me to always champion the goodness that is within the state of Alabama, the great community that's there. Yeah. And so for me, that also leans into the fact that we have a high number of historically Black colleges and universities there. I was not able to attend in HBCU. I attended Auburn University for my bachelor's and Auburn University for my master's degree, and then the graduate system that I was able to complete from Georgia State University in program evaluation, and ultimately I ended up finishing at the University of Georgia in a Doctor of Education and Learning Leadership and Role Development, where I was able to super safe or take things together, a graduate certificate in diversity and inclusion, and then a graduate certificate in nonprofit management and leadership. So for me, I really wanted to attend an HBCU when I was in high school. My dream school at the time was going to be Georgia Tech in Atlanta, and the other one was Morehouse. But it just kind of wasn't in the cards for me. And I always would kind of think about what would it have been like to have a lived experience that was there. Yeah. But because I didn't have that, I wanted, at the same time, I wanted to help in some kind of way to champion those students that attend those as well. And so that's why that is a caveat carved out for a student living in Alabama that wanted to attend an HBCU, or a student that wants to attend any state school within the state of Alabama. And so those are the funds. In terms of how I'm going to do this, I've been doing it quite well so far by being able to get donorships by doing this process. But I also, once again, by building strategy, I also connect with a lot of nonprofit organizations. I tap into the divine dominant Greek, Black letter Greek culture as well to get them to send me scholars that are interested into the scholarship program, because they have a lot of auxiliary organizations for their high school students as well. And so I have a kind of a good little flow of communication to not just get the students here, but to also have a sustainable funding source. And so, of course, as I mentioned before, this is a very new company or business, but that doesn't mean that I should not give back or set a goal for myself to continue to give back in the way that I was before. So,
absolutely. Absolutely. How inspiring, and definitely paying it forward.
Yes. And, for me, honestly, that is how I view success. I know we talked about mentioning wealth a little bit earlier, which I do want to, become a multimillionaire as all of us do, right? And so that's the goal in the forefront of my mind. But I do know for a fact that whenever I get those emails, those phone calls for former students or former scholarship recipients and say, hey, Dr. Wade, I'm getting ready to go to law school. I just got one in a couple of months ago. And that touched me because it was like, oh, you thought of me to say, this is where I'm at in life. And I feel like, and I know that is where wealth is attached to it as well. Right? So I know when my eyes close in 140 years, I know that people.
We're going to be on two people later because I say I'm going to get to 130. So, we're going to be out here. At least I got somebody that's going to be here with me. Okay?
So I know that.
Because 130 is not known.
The lives that I've touched, they have told me, I know that there can be some happiness around it, saying Wade did the right thing, right, with what he earned and also what he received in life. It's a good steward. Yeah, it's important.
All you have to do is have ears and eyes, or one or the other, and you will know that there is a concerted effort to eliminate D, E, and I from colleges and universities. So, additionally, you have worked in that space for quite some time. And in that space, you understand that while you need a space for empathy, you also have to, in practicality, color outside of the lines to get the job done. How does that work for you practically in practice?
Sure. So I want to, quote my good sis Left Eye, and she was like, "Everyone prepare to do your math," right?
Okay.
And so they're simply saying we're going to take some time to peel the layers here. So for starters, I want to be clear to say DEI, which is actually diversity, equity, and inclusion, like I mentioned before, are three different concepts. Diversity is simply the presence of difference within any given setting, right? So the differences could be along the lines of race, identity, nationality, ethnicity, language, political leanings or ideology, all those different things. It could be the presence of short hair, long hair, right, within a space. Now, of course, all of that is scalable. It could be things that will make the difference within a room or a setting, all the way to something that is going to change the dynamic of the outcome of the group or the team or the community that has been represented, right? So equity is about removing the barriers to entry to the success point for all people to have a fair opportunity. I'm a part of team, an example of, I'm a part of Team Short, right? My Team Short, raise your hand, wherever you're located at.
I'm 6'4".
Okay, sure. So with that being said, we're sometimes going to play sports. And so equity would be me playing against LeBron James, where he and I will have a conversation about what is a good starting point for me to start if we're going to go to 10 points. Between 0 and 10, or 9, I should say, to win the game. What is a good starting point for me, who's someone that is 5'8" and some change, versus him being over 6 feet tall, 6'4"? So that communication of removing the barrier of the success point, what does that conversation look like? Now, to some, that could be perceived and internalized as if you're taking from one group to give to another, but that's not actually the way that it's framed. It's about simply giving people the opportunity to succeed in an area that they're interested in without them coming from behind. And so some examples of equity would be your summer bridge programs for your K-12, where students who are from a low income or low disenfranchised community, right? And so if your books are old, if you're not having a lot of opportunities for AP courses or honor courses or different things of that nature, but you're coming into college and you're competing with people that have already had those experiences, there's going to be a gap there, a natural gap, because of what you're exposed to. So an equity program would be to create a summer bridge program for those students who are coming from a marginalized, disenfranchised community due to income of their parents, no fault of their own. They'll be able to gain those skills and experiences to be able to compete fairly to the students that have not had to go through an economically disenfranchised background. Now, when you frame it that way, I don't know anyone that would possibly say, I don't want people to have an access to that, right? Because that's what that is, right? And so inclusion is about the feeling of welcomeness that one would have when they are communicating with others within a group, a team, or community, or classroom. It's simply meaning, are you able to bring your authentic, your whole self into any space because you deserve to be there, and are you going to be treated fairly? That is what diversity, equity, and inclusion actually means. In practice and in theory, from the academic standpoint, so just from a humanitarian place, that's what it means. And so when I have been able to see over the years that there has been a concerted effort politically, governmental, whether it's going to be local or on the national, federal level, all of those things have kind of been alarming to me. where these things of empathy and communicating with others to be understood, they're still central tenets of how we are going to should be governing ourselves and how we appreciate others in general. So that piece of empathy and care is not going to go away because of the changes that are happening across the country, because we need that to survive with one another, right?
Right.
So, with that being said, that led me to look at the landscape where I was seeing it being actively removed from the public square, whether that's going to be at the federal level, where there's actual laws and policies to say you cannot have diversity, equity, inclusion, or anything of the word, but also certain words are being taken out, well, told to be taken out of curriculum, your syllabi, your courses. But the students still need that. The community still needs that. The people that I'm trying to reach still need to have an understanding of that. So that led me also to focus in on how can I still be impactful and get the work done to where I could feel comfortable at night. As someone who has a specialization within diversity, equity, and inclusion, I just refuse to kind of sit on that and not utilize it. And so what I decided to do was implement diversity, equity, and inclusion education materials within ManoraJr.com, because that was responsible of me as someone who was knowledgeable within that area. But also I felt good knowing that, yeah, y'all may have kind of tinkered with the practice within the higher education space where I sit at, but I still need to make sure that I'm giving back in some kind of way with the specializations that I have. I'm also blessed in a way that I do work. Currently, I work at a private institution, a private college outside of Pennsylvania, or outside of Philadelphia, where I can still practice diversity, equity, and inclusion. And since that is my bread and butter, that's what I love, I feel comfortable. But there are scores of people that do this work that their income, their practice, what they love, how they want to educate, has been stripped from them and taken completely, whether they lost their income or they're doing another duty on these college campuses, universities, or just a nonprofit as well, that is not still fulfilling for them. And so hopefully with me building something like this, it can inspire other people to build and so they can still feel comfortable knowing that they still have an impact overall in doing this. So I position myself as being bold. I position myself to say, I want to create something. So you're going to say no here, but I want to figure out a different way. The same mantra that I have for 2.43 with the book is I'm going to figure out a way how to do this. So you can reject it in the spaces that you have control of, but you don't control me.
Right.
And so I'm just going to build a different kind of way to still get the outcomes of the people that I want to impact the most, which are my students, the students across the world.
Yeah, yeah. I was hearing Sealy, Color Purple. I'm here.
I'm here.
Yeah.
It's also a part of the book as well. There's a section where I highlight Sealy from the Color Purple, specifically.
Felt it in my spirit.
I'm here, the Fantasia version. That was also one of the songs that kind of helped motivated me to stay on the course that I was doing the right thing. So yeah, we're here.
And I love Color Purple, so I mean, I felt it. It was like coming off of you. I could hear, look at me, see it, okay? Yes. But I mean, thank you for breaking that down for the audience, because again, even if our audience is minority entrepreneurs, a lot of us don't even realize that breakdown. You hear it all as a one term, and it's a derogatory term in America, and so breaking that down helps us to understand even places in our own businesses where we need to check ourselves to make sure that we are providing a diverse environment, an equitable environment, and an inclusive environment. So thank you again so much. We're here.
Yes.
People hear all the time the term representation matters. And we know that it does, whether you're at the doctor's office, whether you're you can be anywhere, the mechanic shop. It doesn't matter where you are. You want to see people who look like you. In addition to that, you say that, make sure that the underrepresented groups are the people speaking to the underrepresented groups. So again, representation matters. But you're also trying to sell your services to institutions that are backing away from DE&I. How do you navigate those tensions?
So for one, this is where my inner rebel comes in. Manora Jr. is not backing away from diversity, equity, and inclusion language. It is very much so a necessary part in the lived experiences of everyone. It is not self-owned by a specific group or another. We all are gatekeepers and curators of diversity, equity, and inclusive spaces, right? So the moment that it becomes off kilter where one community decides, oh, I'm not really feeling it that way, then it's going to have a domino effect. So for me, I'm standing firm and saying, this is how I'm going to be presenting myself. If in my what I offer, if you are here for it, then we can go forward. If you're not, then that's fine. Hopefully you will come up on board, but I'm not removing the central tenet of diversity and inclusion from the way that my branding is, who I am as a person, and what I understand and how I view the world, and the necessary part that diversity and inclusion plays a part in it, because there's an empathy factor there that you can't gain if you don't have an understanding of the importance of deconstructing, I would say, backphobia, Islamophobia, xenophobia, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, all of these things, all these constructs, they are problematic because you're going to be isolating people just because of how they naturally exist, including futurism, texturism, all these different concepts that we are operating within the system that we currently exist in. But if you don't deconstruct those and you don't start to unlearn the ways that we have been socialized to do, you're going to be perpetuating harm. And so when I stated that you make sure that your underrepresented groups are being able to speak directly for people that are underrepresented, I know for a fact that me speaking directly to other Black men about these things, it will take roots. It'll be like kind of a seed planted that will go much further, much deeper to a ground that is prepared to be watered because I said it, because I'm one of them, right? I was the very same way when I was growing up. I took a little bit more of an understanding when my father's friends or his fraternity brothers or my coaches who were all Black men said something versus someone of a different identity may have said something that I was like, I don't necessarily think you understand or have a pretense of what it feels like or what I may be going through. Right. I'm not saying that your advice is not valuable, but I do know that there's something to be said to say, oh, I have a visual that is direct copy of who I am and what I exist in, right. And I'm able to connect with it. I see it in my practice when I work with Black male students as well. And I know that they appreciate that. So I don't necessarily navigate the tension from a negative space because I don't really view it. It's not framed that way for me internally. Mm-hmm. What it is framed is I have my boundary and my barrier, and it's not moving. That's just kind of where I am. Now I'll add too to learn more about the lived experiences of other people. And the foundation is the foundation in terms of myself.
Yeah. Never take no for an answer. Mm-hmm. No just means reroute. You can make your dream come true if you have the right partner. And Dr. Wade Manora Jr. is that partner. That is about believing in yourself. I mean, and so, we like to leave the people with a little 1-2, a little call to action, for someone who's listening, who's in higher ed, or anywhere else. I mean, work anywhere. We have worked in higher ed, my story. But they see the need for entrepreneurship. And you're afraid, you're the person, you're afraid to take the leap. Mm-hmm. They know about taking the leap into entrepreneurship. What would you tell them about starting lean, staying strategic, and building something sustainable while still working full time? And what's the just one tracking method that they should implement from day one?
Definitely, I think it's vitally important to know your reasons why and keep that as the central focal point for your entire process. That way, when you know why you're doing something and you know that it's very important to you, it'll help ground you. So when the times get hard, you can always reflect back and say, this is why I'm doing this. It's very important for me to do this. So that's one thing that I would say that it's going to help propel you, because I know it helped propel me to realize that, I found something that was bigger than myself. that I can connect with that's going to always keep me grounded, but also always keep me in a place of I want to complete this and see the entire process of whatever it takes to see it through.
Mhm.
So that in terms of me, that means writing books, and in terms of creating these e-modules, creating a website, looking at different types of logos that are out there from people and trying to figure out what is the best brand positioning, who to talk to, what does my learning should look like. Then also recognizing what are some things that I don't know, right?
Yeah.
That I need to learn about to get to where this next stage of where development should be. And also too, I would tell people in higher ed or just in different fields in general that there is a lot of power within one's individual story because someone somewhere or multiple someones in that case could connect in some kind of way. So with that being said, I do want to give Brandon
Oh,
a
hey,
book.
turn up.
And so for
We've been waiting.
2.43, this I know for a fact when I was writing this and the words just began to pour out about the different lived experiences that I have that many of you have probably been able to connect with. Like some people may not know that someone who earned a doctoral degree didn't have a car for a long time while they were in college because my original car had broke down. Some things happened that are in the book. It's inspiring. I also tell people that it's filled with comedy, but there's also some reflective tragedy that you can take with you to say, oh my gosh, Dr. Wade Manora Jr. went through something like this,
Yeah.
and I'm going through something extremely similar or the exact same thing, or something that I can put myself in his particular situation, and I know if he made it, I can connect with them. And also, you can connect me via email at the same time at wmj@wademenorjr.com, and we can have those conversations. So for day one, I would say the biggest metric that you can set for yourself, keep your reason of why you want to do this, do the research to figure out what are things that are out there already existing in and be able to identify a particular gap, and also use technology, utilize Excel spreadsheets, utilize, in this case would be Zoom. Figure out how you can take your one person production and at the same time be able to be coachable, teachable, and also being able to lean on other people's when you don't have a great understanding of a particular thing. So that is how I would frame the metric piece of it. And once you do that, then you can start establishing numbers and the quantifiable sorts of things. But keep your goal first, and then everything else will fall into place. So get 2.43, the impossible dream.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Wade, we really appreciate you for sharing your expertise and your journey and just your sheer knowledge with our audience today. I know that somebody will be helped because of the stories that you have given us. So again, I just appreciate you for taking an opportunity to come down. He came from Philadelphia, okay?
I did.
I mean, he came from Philadelphia to sit on the couch, okay? I'd have to go up there. Thank God. I mean, I would have gone, but it's the winter, so it's like
and it's
but
going.
sometimes get me into something. But we appreciate you for your time. And like I say, anytime you want to come back, we're always here. So we're here for the next release, if you will.
Yes, I have a couple more ideas of some book ideas that I'm trying to frame around and kind of think about. So I'm very, very excited. And I do have a couple other e-modules that are going to be in development as well. So
Awesome.
Very excited.
So as we continue, we like to continue to promote. So you'll see more and more about Dr. Manora Jr. And again, thank you so much.
Hello, this is Dr. Wade Manora Jr., and I'm here just to make sure that you are aware that wademenorajr.com is live and it's ready for you. So if you're ever at a place as of right now, or in the near future, that you're really ready to take your career development, your understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as your team leadership development, whether that's going to be small, medium, or large, your teams, your nonprofit, really to understand how you can better work effectively, check us out at wademenorajr.com. Also, at the same time, we do have personal programs as well that we can develop for specifically for you as an individual or with your team. All of it's going to be on the website. In addition to that, if you're interested in having a better understanding, but also hearing from an inspirational story of truth, of facts, of vulnerability, and also for you just to be able to walk away understanding that your life is very similar to someone else's life. And a lot of times when you feel like you're in this world alone, that you may not know how to dig yourself out. And that was the reason really why I decided to write 2.43 An Impossible Dream, because I was looking for a way to grab hold of something, and I didn't necessarily could find that in a form of literature at all. And so for me, that inspired me to write this book because I wanted to be transparent while at the same time being able to help the masses of people that I know for a fact kind of have a misconception about people who are doctoral, the terminal degree holders, but also people that have achieved a great amount of success that others may feel as a great amount of success, which it is, but everything is quantifiable and measurable at this point within our life. And so for me, if you know of a young person, if you know that you need an extra little push, this book of real stories will be for you. So check us out on the website for a signed copy, or you can go directly to Amazon and search 2.43 The Impossible Dream, and the book will pop up there. I look forward to engaging with you as I have direct communication, direct contact, I should say, with the website as soon as you check us out.
Thanks for listening to Business in the Black. If today's conversation resonated with you, be sure to follow the podcast and share this episode with someone who's building alongside you. New episodes drop bi-weekly, so stay connected with us on social media for behind-the-scenes moments and key takeaways. Until next time, keep building with intention.